start early? It's 5 minutes early. Let's start. Father God, guide us tonight as we look at your word. We're filled with gratitude as we think back on the things we've learned from you. We ask that we might be made to be able to tell the story of your Son in such a way as others might believe on him, they might love him, and they might be loved by you. Father God, that they might be saved. Thank you for letting us be together. In Jesus' name. Did I tell you, I talked to you last night about the good news. My son is home from Afghanistan. He got home from Afghanistan. And we got to see his family meet him, his children meet him on Facebook. They took pictures when his little children, his little boy and his little girl got to see him. But the most exciting thing to me was I learned from my wife that he's been able to worship God in Afghanistan. Now that's a Muslim nation. They're not very interested in allowing you to worship God. But the interesting thing is that the interesting thing was that he went to, when he got there, and they went to the base he was going to be on, he met the commanding officer. I told you this last night. He met the commanding officer who was a general, a one-star general. And the bingo, that next Sunday, when he went to worship, there's 19 of them that go to worship together, and one of those is his commanding officer. So he was there in a foreign country where, you know, the Muslims don't want you to worship, but they let them worship on the base. And one of them was the commander. I mean, so isn't it wonderful that you have a man that's a high man who loves God? That was real thrill. To know that my son got to go to church also, that was very nice too. All right, last night we got pretty well along. I thought we started the first of chapter 20 again, all right? Because we just had chapter 20 and 21. This is actually the greatest of all the signs in the Gospel of John. Why is that? Because it is with God raising Jesus from the dead. All right. So it was the first day of the week after he died. He died on a Friday. And this lady, Mary Magdalene, came to the tomb early. I always like to think about her because she's the one that Jesus had cleansed from the demon, remember? All right. And she came very early while it was still dark. And she saw the stone had been taken away from the tomb, which was a surprise because should have been soldiers there. It should have been a guarded tomb. She ran and went and told Simon Peter and the other disciple. And this other disciple is the one that Jesus loved. You could take this phrase, wow, you boys need to learn to not drop things. The one whom Jesus loved, if you took that phrase and you had a Bible program, you could put the word John there, and you could substitute the word John every time you see that. Because never does he call himself anything but that in this book, remember? All right. So this, and she said that they have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him, which is a very disgraceful thing, they think. So when Peter came with the other disciple, they went out together towards the tomb. They both ran, but the disciple tells us, John tells us, I outran Peter, and I reached the tomb first. But we learned something about John, and what did we learn about John? And we learned that Brother Clint needs to make another copy for me, and I'll go tell him now. Just give me a second. What did we learn about John when we went there? That he wasn't very brave, right? Would you have been brave? It's very surprising. It's a wonderful story because it's so well known. But it's an amazing story because amazing in that where's the body? And what has happened? They don't know what's happened. First of all, it's a surprising thing that the tomb is open. How can that tomb possibly be open? It's been guarded, and it's got a very large stone on it, and it's been sealed by the government that you're not allowed to open it. And here it is wide open when she gets there. And she runs and tells the others because she thinks the body of Jesus has been stolen. All right. Make that 3. All right. And all right, so he stooped down and looked in, but he didn't go there. But this is very important to us. They saw the cloth, and look how many details the Bible puts in there. What kind of material did they use to wrap Jesus in? Didn't turn on YouTube. Okay. What kind of deal did they wrap him in? Linen cloth. linen cloth, which is a kind made from linen, and you weave it by hand. It's a vegetable cloth, the kind the high priest wore. All right. So he saw the linen cloth lying there, but he did not go in. So he sees the cloth, which is the big thing, but he doesn't see the thing that goes on the head. And there's two different words in our Greek Bible for those two different things. All right. Simon Peter came, and he followed him, and then Simon didn't stop evidently. You can almost see John. He walks up, Thomas, get around to him. Peter runs on in, and he saw the linen cloth lying there. And the napkin which had been on his head, not lying with the linen cloth, but rolled up and placed in another place. It wasn't just dropped, but it was rolled up and laid someplace. And the other one's wrapped up also in another spot. That proves something. And what does that prove? That no one stole the body, because they would take the cloth if they stole the body. Correct? Take the cloth. That's foolishness, think otherwise. Then the other disciple, this is John, who reached the tomb first. He's very real, isn't he? I mean, you can almost see him. He was afraid to go in. When Peter comes, he goes in, and he'll follow Peter in. He's not embarrassed to tell us the truth about how he conducted himself. All right? And he went in, and he saw, and it said, well, he believed. And now he tells us something. Even though Jesus had said 3 times, I'm going to Jerusalem, I'll be betrayed, I'll be abused, I'll be killed, and I'll rise again the 3rd day, they didn't believe it. 3 times he told it. If you want to find that, it's very easy to find it. Mark 8, 9, and 10. Let's each remember those 3 chapters together. Say 8, 9, and 10. You can find it in Matthew and other places. But the point is, he tells them each time, I'm going there, I'll be betrayed. So he already knows what Judas is going to do way before time. But Mary, what did they do? When they got done, they went back, said they went back to their homes, all right? Yeah. When they went back to the homes. So they went back to the other disciples. Mary stood there crying outside the tomb. And this is very characteristic. And it's also a picture of real life, because this lady is crying there. She can't do anything. She's at the tomb. And then she sees 2 angels. And it's very interesting. She describes the angels. It says they're in white, but that same word can be brilliance. So she has 2 brilliantly dressed angels, one at the head of the foot and one at the foot of the body where Jesus is laid. And they ask her a question, what are you crying about? What are you weeping? Because she don't know who have taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they have put it. They laid him. All right? Saying this, she turned around and she saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Why not? Why do you think that she didn't know it was Jesus? How clear can you see what you're crying? Huh? What about your eyes? Could it be? And maybe Jesus doesn't look the same as before, right? All right? He must be dressed differently than he was before, because all the grave clothes are gone. We don't imagine he appears without clothes, right? So, woman, and he says to her, woman, why are you weeping? The word woman does not mean insult. That's the way they spoke to each other. Woman, why are you weeping? Whom do you see? She's supposed to be the gardener. Now, how do we know that? How do you know she's supposed to be the gardener? Can you not hear the conversations that went on among the apostles afterwards? John was talking to her later. Why did you? And she said, I thought it was the gardener. You know that she must have told John this. It's very exciting to you that she's thinking about this. So she said, sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you've laid him, and I will take him away. Is that practical? Is it practical what she's suggesting? If you'll just show me where you put the body, I will carry the body someplace else. Would she have?
Yes, maybe.
Why would she? Because she loved Jesus so much that she didn't want his body to be disgraced, correct?
Yeah.
So isn't that beautiful? And this is so real. You can't doubt that this is a real story as you listen to the details. Jesus said to her, Maria, what to do? She turned to him and she said, Teacher, Rabboni, teacher. He's most important because she is a follower of Jesus. She is a disciple, and a disciple follows a teacher. And look, John knows that people who read this that don't understand Hebrew. So he said, that means teacher. That proves something. That proves this manuscript was written in Greek. Jesus said to her, do not, see? Now, put in your outline, Doli di Tangieri. Because I knew that Jose Rizal had written his book, his first book, and he had entitled it, Touch Me Not. Right? Touch me not. But Jesus didn't really say to her, touch me not, because the word hapto, excuse me, I'll look at you. Hapto means don't hold on to me. It doesn't mean don't touch me. It means don't hold on to me, because look what it says here. Don't hold me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Mary, you don't need to worry, I'm not leaving yet. Now she don't want him to leave because she don't know if she'll see him again. You know how it feels. If you would see my little granddaughter, when her daddy came to her classroom 2 days ago, when they took the picture of her, you can't see her. You just see you know how when you got your camera and you take a picture and something's moving? She was moving so fast that you can't see the details of her face on. You just know that little girl running. It's blurred. But the next one you see, she's holding him. But that's the way Mary's feeling about Jesus. Don't hold on to me. I've not gone to the Father. But go to, now look how he addresses, how he talks about the apostles now. Brethren, you go to my brothers, and you tell them. And so said they, I'm sending to my Father, and now he says to your Father. But not only that, what else? To my God and your God. Why would Jesus, who is the eternal Word, call God his God? I used to, when I taught at Philippine Bible College, the preacher students, I used to ask them the question to trap them. When did Jesus stop being a man? See, and they thought, well, when he stopped being able to be killed, when his body was dying, and they say, well, when he went to heaven. That's not true. When did Jesus stop being a man? And the answer is, he never stopped being a man. He is your living hope, is he not? God has given us a living hope by the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. So Jesus proved something. When he ascended to the Father, he makes sure that you understand that time will come that you also will be able to dwell in your complete person with God. So that's a trap question. But notice what Jesus says. He calls him my God because he shares that relationship now because of his subjecting himself to where he has. I suppose that's it. Do you have any better explanation? Mary Magdalene went and said to the disciples, look what she does. She does exactly what Jesus tells her to. And it's wonderful. Now you ladies, it's very interesting. Brother Peter, Brother Paul and the others say, now a lady is not supposed to dominate over the gentleman, right? Because it says that's the way we're made. The men are supposed to protect. They're supposed to lead. They're supposed to be the one to get destroyed if there's danger. That's what it's all about. But look what happened. Who were the first ones who proclaimed that Jesus was alive? Was it men? No, because these two men went away, but they had not seen Jesus. And these two men went away, and if you read all four accounts, you discover that when this lady and the other ladies that are not mentioned in the Gospel of John, when they told that he had been raised from the dead, they thought it was a made-up story. They didn't believe it. It's a little bit shameful. And you know it's shameful because if you look at Matthew, when Jesus, Matthew 18 following, he came to them and it says he upbraided them for their hardness of heart, their unbelief. So the first thing Jesus has to say to them, why didn't you believe? Is he talking about, well, I told you 3 times that it was going to happen. You didn't remember. And then these ladies told you they saw him me, but you still didn't believe. So he upbraided them for their unbelief. All right. So she told them that he had said these things to her. Now, on the evening of that day, the first day of the week, so as we were talking earlier, some of us by ourselves, we assume that this is still in the city of Jerusalem because you can't go to Galilee in one day. They're supposed to go, but it's short, right? They can't go to Galilee yet. So it's in Jerusalem, but it's also with the door closed. Why is the door closed? Because they're afraid the Jews will kill them like they killed Jesus. They're still afraid. All right? So even the first day, with the doors being shut, where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said to them, peace be with you. That is so grand that the wonderful thing is that Jesus is so mighty, But no one is going to be afraid of him, because what's he going to say to you?
Yes, maybe physical.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Isn't that wonderful? If you think about dying, what's it going to be like? If you don't on the other side, what's it going to be like? If you meet him, he's going to say, don't worry about anything. You're all right. All right? Isn't that wonderful? When he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Why did he do that? Why did he do that? Didn't God let him heal up? I mean, didn't God perfect his body? Why are those marks still there? To prove that this is really Jesus. You see, these people have to prove to the whole world that Jesus really rose from the dead. And that the body that they nailed, they put holes in, and the place where they put the spear was still visible at that time. And they could have no doubt that this is he. Even though he might look different, because when they see him later in this next chapter, they won't recognize him on the shore. And Maria didn't recognize, Mary Magdalene didn't recognize him either, correct? But so he has still the marks, and we know for sure this is the person that died on the cross. All right? They were glad when they saw the Lord. They've been scared. They've been afraid. And I asked you last night, how do you think Peter felt? How do you think Peter felt? Well, I think he's happy. And I think he's of such a nature that even though he makes a big mistake, he'll just go right on as if he didn't make the big mistake. Right? But I know there must be something behind it. All right. Now he said, as the Father has sent me, even so I send you. For why did he select the apostles? When we start the book of Acts, he tells them, you shall be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the world. Now, they're the only ones that can do this. Why? Because you can't testify to something you have not seen. That's why people fool other people. Say, oh, I was going down the stairs, and I turned around and looked back, and I looked in the face of Jesus. Well, then they do something that makes me know they didn't look in the face of Jesus, because they try to trick me for something. No, I don't buy that. If they believe it, live it, that's their problem. Or maybe it's not a problem. But for me, I don't buy that. I know you have to be the first person to make the testimony, and they were. All right, when he saw this, when he said this, he breathed upon them and said to them, receive the Holy Spirit. Now, why is it such an appropriate thing for him to do, to breathe upon them? Why? Do you remember when we were studying chapter 3? Do you remember when we studied chapter 3? Nicodemus, the discussion there with Nicodemus, you must be born again. You must be born of water and the Spirit. Nicodemus says you can't be. And Jesus says you don't understand. You don't even understand the wind, because the wind goes where it wants to, right? But I told you, John is a very interesting writer, because he takes the Greek word pneuma, which means breath, and wind, and spirit. See how he's playing with the words to make this, oh. So Jesus symbolized something. What did he symbolize? Receive the Holy Spirit. Now, is that a fact then, or is it a promise? It's a promise yet. Why do you know that? Because you've read the first book, part of the book of Acts, right? Now, if you didn't have that, you would understand that John said we receive the Holy Spirit to help us to do what he's promised to help us do in the chapters you and I studied before. 14, 15, 16, remember? I'll go away. It's fortunate I go away. If I go away, I'll send another one. Someone to stand with you. What do they need? Why are they happy that Jesus is there? Because they're afraid when they're by themselves, right? I'll send you another helper, another paraclete, another counselor. Okay. And when he said this, he breathed on them, and he said, receive the Holy Spirit. Now, he says something. And you Greek students, this is where your participle comes in, perfect passive participle. You all understand perfect passive participle? All right, receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained, right? Now, if sins are going to be, the word forgive means what? Does anybody know what the word forgive means? It's the word aphasin. What does it mean? It means to turn loose. to turn loose. If you turn loose of sins, they're turned loose. If you hold on to sins, they're held on to. Now, where does the holding on and the turning loose start? On earth or in heaven? Well, who forgives?
Others. Then others.
God does. So where does forgiveness start? Does it start with men or does it start with God? Now, I'm not talking about you forgiving the offense against somebody. But nobody can offend us without at the same time, if it's a sin, it has to be answered to, not just to the one I sinned against, but to whom? To God, correct? So they're being told something. I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you what people must do to have their sins turned loose. And if you tell them that, and that's happened, then what God has done here will be done on earth. If they will not change, if they not turn loose, what? It's still retained. Does that make sense to y'all? Do you understand that? Now, I'm very interested in talking about that for this reason, that sometimes human beings are very arrogant, and we take to ourselves the prerogatives that belong to God. We don't have that much. So forgiveness starts there. And if you look in the other Gospels, it's even clearer. Whatsoever has been bound in heaven, whatever was bound there before, shall be bound on earth. Whatsoever shall have been loosed in heaven shall be loosed on earth. All right. And that's what it tells you. That's what their function is going to be, to help people to find salvation. Now, Thomas. Do you like Thomas? He's one of my heroes. I like Thomas. I really like Thomas. Why? Well, I can understand Thomas. Somebody comes and they tell you about some wonderful thing. Oh, we went to this retreat and it was so wonderful and it was so great and we sang and we had such a wonderful time and you didn't get to go. And how do you feel inside? You feel a little, well, I don't think it's so much. It must have not been. Because you feel, I don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to. I don't know why. The other 11, the other 10 got to see Jesus and he didn't get to see Jesus. Now, in my mind, I'm telling you what I feel. That may not be the way it is, but I see that. So Thomas is not, he's very, well, anyway, first of all, why would you believe somebody rose from the dead? You know he's dead. You've had time to talk to others about him being dead. You had all Saturday to talk together. And John was there. And John was saying, he was taking care of Mary already. And John was saying, oh, it was terrible. You know what? Before they took him out, the soldier didn't break his leg. He stuck the spear into Jesus. And I saw the blood and water come out. It was horrible. And he's told you all this stuff. And you know Jesus is really dead. Because you know that Joseph of Arimathea has let him have a tomb. And not only that, the word has probably got back to you already that you can't go to that tomb because there's guards there. The high priest has put guards there. You can't go there. So they know all that. And he said, I'm not going to believe. See, we've seen the Lord. Unless I see his hands, the print of the nails, and place my fingers in the mark of the nails, and place my hand in his side, I will not believe. Now that is, what word do you, how do you describe that kind of statement? A little proud? Maybe a little arrogant? I don't know why I say it. Maybe disappointments? But is it logical to not believe that Jesus rose from the dead? Tell me who rose from the dead before in the Bible. You can't tell me. Who can you tell me? Who rose from the dead before? Don't tell me Lazarus, because Jesus raised him. He's going to die again. They want to kill him. Tell me. See, that's what's so wonderful about Abraham taking Isaac up to the Mount Moriah. By the way, the same place where Jesus died. There are only two places Moriah is found in the Bible. That, 2 Chronicles 3:1, where Solomon built the temple on Mount Moriah. Abraham takes his son up to Mount Moriah to offer him up. And Abraham was willing to kill Isaac because God had said, I'll bless the whole world through Isaac. But if Isaac is dead, he can't bless the world. So Abraham believed, first Hebrews 11 said, Abraham believed that God could raise him from the dead. But it's easy to understand why they wouldn't believe it, because it's still hard for people to accept it. And yet, we'll see. Because 7 days later, the next Sunday, 8 days later, the disciples were again in the house, and Thomas was with them. The doors were shut, but Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then now, this is what's so Jesus is so hard, you know. Everybody thinks Jesus doesn't know what's going on. Nathaniel didn't think anybody knew what he was thinking when he was reading his Bible or whatever it was, right? The lady meets him and she thinks her past is not known, and Jesus looks at her and he knows her past. And now here, Thomas has been talking and Jesus knows what he said. So Jesus says, okay, here's your opportunity. Put your finger here. See my hands, and put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not be faithless, but believing. Thomas, I want you to believe. Right? Now, is Thomas startled? The Iglesia de Cristo tells us, and others who don't want to believe in Jesus being raised, they say, we have our typical comments in Naquito, he was scared. Oh my Lord, my God. No, that is not possible. Because Jesus has met him and said, first, don't be afraid. So he is not afraid. And Jesus is standing there saying, here. Now what does Thomas say? See, what does Thomas say? Let me tell you, for many years I studied this Gospel of John. And I always thought the next two verses were the big part of that. But I don't believe anymore. I think this statement here, verse 28, all that we've studied is to come to bring everybody to the point where anyone who's going to follow Jesus will make this statement. Unless you recognize him in these ways, how can you be a Christian? This is what John got us for. Now then he tells us in the next verses that he has done this to us. But all these miracles, all these signs have been pointing to one thing. And they finally bring it. And the great sign of Jesus rising from the dead is now before Thomas. Because here's a human body with nail prints in it and a hole in its side. And he says, not I won't believe, but my Lord and my God. And it's such a grand thing. We ask people before they become Christians, do you believe with all your heart that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God? That's what John wants to do, right? But that's saying this. If he is Panginoon, if he's Lord, what does that mean? If he's Lord, I am going to serve him. Correct? What about this other? It's one thing to tell someone you respect him and he can be your teacher. Gandhi freed India believing that Jesus was the teacher. Because Gandhi used the teachings of Jesus to get the British to turn the Indians loose. He learned that not from Buddha, not from anything in the Hindu religion, or nothing in the Muslim religion. He learned that from Jesus Christ. Read his life story. Gandhi believed Jesus was the greatest of teachers. But he didn't ever confess him as my Lord and my God. He never called him my Savior. He only saw him as a great teacher, which he is, by the way. He is. You can build a wonderful philosophy of life and have a wonderful community without ever being saved by doing what Jesus says. But that doesn't make him Savior. But if you say he's my Lord and my, he's divine. You confess he's divine. And that's what has been breaking through all the way through our stories. And all the words Jesus used there are read again today, 13 through 16. I suggest you do that time at a time. There he tells you very clearly, I'm trying to show you that I and the Father are one. I'm trying to show you the unity that we have. I'm telling you I want you to have that kind of unity. And it's based upon the love we have for one another. Jesus said, now notice, Jesus didn't ask him, are you startled? He says to him, have you believed because you have seen me? Then what does he say? Say this in a modern way. Better off, happier, more blessed are the people in Cebu City on this day than Thomas was when he could actually put his finger. Do you believe that? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. And I can remember Peter talking about Jesus. And he said, not having seen him, we love him. Wow. Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. This is the basis of the good confession. I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. It will be for almost 300 years that in some place in the Roman Empire, if you say, I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, it is your death warrant. You will die because you're a Christian. That is not a fabrication. It's not something made up by Christians. You can read in Pliny the Younger that he put Christians to death for just saying, I am a Christian. He would warn them 3 times and tell them, you better not say it again. You could go free if you didn't say that. But you make that good confession and you die. This is what God wants us to come to believe that Jesus is the Christ, the King that has been coming. He has a kingdom. It's a more permanent kingdom than anybody else. He is the anointed by God. He got that title Christo because God anointed him and God confessed he's his son. And therefore he is the Son of God. That's what we're trying to help people see. And then see the benefits from that. Because he's the only one who can get us to forgiveness of our sins. All right, now, it's interesting. Now John's going to tell us something about him. Who was he and why did he write this book? What happened? What happened after this? Now, he's lived longer than all the others. So he tells us something happened. After this event, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples, but not now in Jerusalem, but far to the north on the sea that called the Sea of Tiberias, or the Sea of Galilee. And here's how he revealed himself. What happened? Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael, 1, 2, of Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, that's 5, and 2 others, that's 7, were together. Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. Why would Peter say I'm going fishing? Because who's supporting them? It's logical to go fishing if you're a fisherman and you go home, and your wife might say, we don't have anything to eat. So they went fishing. All right? And I'm going fishing. They said, we'll go with you. They went out and got in the boat, but that night they caught nothing. They caught nothing. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the beach. Yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, children, have you any fish? They answered no. Okay, we're going to find out. He was about 100 meters from the shore. They were about 100 meters apart, okay? Right. He said, have you got anything? Maybe that man on the shore wants to buy some fish. Maybe he wants to buy some fish. You got anything, children? Well, you got anything to say? You catch a better clue? What do you got? All right. He said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find something. So they cast it. And now they were not able to haul it in for the quantity of fish. What does that make you think about? What does that make you think about? It makes your mind go all the way back to Luke chapter 5, when Jesus called them and made them fishers of men. That day when they caught so many fish that it filled 2 boats and they were about to lose their nets. Okay? It makes them think of it too. The disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, John is always talking to Peter. It's the Lord. And Peter is always being Peter. Correct? This is not the first time Peter got out of the boat when Jesus is out on the other side, right? In the storm, he walked on the sea for a little bit. Now, but look at his heart. When he heard that it was the Lord, he put on his clothes. He put on his outside clothes, for he was stripped for work, and he jumped into the sea. Now, he's not a very good helper. I mean, if you caught a whole bunch of fish and you're all fishing together, and Peter just drops his part of it and jumps his... What is wrong with this fellow anyway? What's wrong with this fellow? Nothing's wrong with this fellow. He's exactly right. He wants to go to Jesus, but he should be ashamed. He should be ashamed to face Jesus, but he's not. He can't help it. That's why he's not dead like Judas. Huh? And Jesus has to love him. I don't believe Peter was any leader of the church in the first century. I don't believe Jesus ever made a pyramid government for the church. If he did, he is at the head, and nobody else is the head. But Peter was a faithful servant. Huh? But the other disciples came to the boat, dragging the net full of fish. So Peter's up there on the bank, and the other 6 of us have to bring the boat, huh? All right. For they were not far from the land, but about 100 yards off. When they got to the land, they saw a charcoal fire, charcoal fire there with fish lying on it and bread. You know, many people in this world cannot understand this picture as well as we can. We here in the Philippines can understand this picture, can we not? Ihaw, isda. I can spell it. Can't you spell it? We can spell it. I mean, we know it, no? It's very wonderful because we can understand, we can feel. Now, we wouldn't be wanting any bread. We'd be wanting the rice, but that's not the point. We could understand what's happening there and how that fish is being cooked. You don't have to do anything except put him on the fire. Okay. Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish that you have just caught. So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore full of large fish. Look what John says, 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. I want you to know this is a true story. I can prove this is a true story. John is a fisherman. And this fisherman told you there was 153 fish. And they were big. Why would he do that? Why would he know that? Because fishermen know those things, right? And what do you think they did with the rest of the fish? Huh? And there's more than one family represented, correct? But I'm making suppositions. Correct, I'm making suppositions. But they're logical suppositions. What are you going to do with all those fish? You're not going to eat 153 of them, but your family will, and you'll sell some. It's a very wonderful blessing, right? But something has to happen before Peter does that. All right. I put that picture there. I told you about the boat. You remember I told you about the boat? Some men, 2 brothers, in 1985, 2 brothers, when the Sea of Galilee was very low, they were walking in the mud, and they found the remainder of a boat, the ribs and all, and they very carefully, the scientists said very carefully, they kept it wet, they dug it up, they preserved it, and they found out how it was made, how long it was, how big it was, and how old it was, and the date they put on it was 52 AD. If Jesus dies in 33, what is that? How many years is that? 19 years, no? 19 years. And they put the date about that. So this boat is the kind of boat that perhaps we're talking about today. It'll hold about 15 people. Wow. And I thought, man, this is amazing. We can find out about, the Bible talks about baskets. And when we look up the Greek words for baskets, and they have it, we know how big the baskets were. We read about a boat, and now God has provided a picture of an example of a boat of that time. So it's not fiction, you know. All right. Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. Now none of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and so with the fish. Jesus always feeds them. Remember the 2 men on the way to Emmaus? They didn't know who Jesus was. They walked and talked with him. They talked about him, to him. But when they sat down to eat, and he blessed and broke the bread, immediately they knew who it was. And then he was gone, and they came back. We saw him. Now they know him, and what's he doing? The same thing. I'll not eat with you until I eat of the kingdom. Say, okay. This was now the 3rd time that Jesus presented the meal to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. That's the way John remembers it. That's the way he tells us. Now comes the reckoning. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Remember, Jesus had told Peter one time, I prayed for you that Satan might not get you, you know. And when you've been converted, strengthen your brethren. And Peter, of course, is never going to fail Jesus. He told him that. He will die with Jesus. But he didn't. All right. What happened then? Do you love me? The word. Now, some people don't believe there's an importance to these words, the difference in the words used by Jesus and Peter. I think there is. So the first thing he says, do you love me more than these? What are these? Now, if he has boasted in the past that others might fail you, but not me, he might have contrasted himself with the other 11. If he is going to live for fishing and for making money in this world, do you love me more than these things you're now using again? I don't know. Do you? But Jesus is challenging. Do you love me more than these? Maybe he's saying more than these others. Peter doesn't say this. What does Peter say? He said, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Agape, Philia. You know I'm your friend. You know I have affection for you. Feed my lambs. Feed my little ones. We must never forget that, right? We're all excited about having babies. I mean, Rachel's going to have another one. We got a new baby at home where I'm at. When I get home, my wife, when I call her, she says, I got a young lady with me. She's holding her great-grandbaby. We're very excited, but you see, you have to raise the babies. So he says, feed my lambs, the small sheep. The second time he said, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Same word, agape. And John says, John says, yes, George, you know that I have affection for you. And now Jesus says, Peter, what? Tend my sheep. What's the difference between feed and tend? I'd much rather feed than tend.
To take care of them.
Amen. You got to take care of them. You got to take care of their wounds. You got to make sure they're safe. You got to lead them. This is shepherding, right? You take care of my mature ones now, my sheep. All right. The third time, he said to the third time, Simon, son of John, do you have affection for me? He changed his words down to where Peter was. Are you my friend? Peter was grieved because he said to the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know I love you. How do you feel when you hear that?
Sometimes it recalls that he denied the Lord 3 times, so the Lord asked him 3 times also.
But how do you feel? Do you have any feelings? But you're right. You can't say it's unjust, but that's not the point. I'm asking, how do you feel when you hear these words of Peter? How about, suppose it was your older brother. Your older brother has done something, and now he's having to face the embarrassment and the shame of what he did. And what do you feel inside? I want to cry. I want to cry for Peter, because I can feel how he feels inside. Can you not?
Yeah.
This is not a stranger. This is somebody we admire. We look at him and he's so good, you know. He makes so many mistakes, but he's so real and so good. And I want to say, oh, I'm so sorry he's having to feel this. But he has to feel this, right? Because he did the other. But I feel something. How about you? I feel something. So now Jesus changes and he says to him, feed, not my lambs anymore, but feed my sheep. I don't know. Maybe I imagine too many things. Now, I got a question for you. Is Peter the only one who Jesus expected to feed the sheep? No. He did not make Peter the chief shepherd. If you look at your outline, I quoted for you 1 Peter chapter 5, where Peter tells you that he was a shepherd of the flock of God. And he tells us you must not be a boss over them, and you must not do it to gain money. You must not do it because people force you to, or because you want power. So he understood those things, and he wrote that after he experienced this. And he calls Jesus the chief shepherd. So he always knew he was walking under the direction of the chief shepherd. Okay. Now Jesus has something more to say to Peter. Truly, truly, I say to you that when you were young, you girded yourself and walked where you would. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will gird you and carry you where you do not wish to go. Peter has said to Jesus, when Jesus said, I'm going away, he said, why can't I go with you? I'll die for you. Jesus said, you'll follow me, but not now. You will follow me, but not now. And he's going to follow him, because John's going to explain what it means. This he said to show what death he was, what is death, by what death he was to glorify God. And after this he said to him, follow me. Peter said, I will. I can go with you. Jesus said, you'll follow me, but not that. Later you'll go. And he will. And I've said this hundreds of times, probably at this time. I think about this family, I think about these people, and I think about a lady who was married to Peter. And after this event, when he comes home talking about the great catch of fish, where they came from, and he tells her what Jesus said, what does she know? That someday, when my husband leaves this house, when my husband goes, he won't come back. He'll be killed. Because Jesus has said he'll die upon my death. Isn't that interesting? We try to make out like being a single person is more wonderful than being a married person. Look at the things they bore. Look at the example they were. I wish I could write a nice poem about Sister Barjona, the wife of Peter, how she felt when he left the house. Wouldn't that be interesting? He said, now look what Peter said about this. Right? The willing shepherd. In 1 Peter 5:2, he's talking now. He's an old man. And he's telling us, I'm writing so that you'll not forget it. When it's the second letter, we studied it. Now, I want you to remember. But he says, shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight, but not under compulsion, not because you're forced to, but because you want to. As God would have you, not for any benefits you might get, but you do eagerly. Why do you girls like to hold babies? If we've got a little tiny new baby in here, anybody want to hold it? Would anybody like to hold a baby? You like to hold a baby? Why do you want to hold a baby? Because that's your nature. Right? That's who we are. That's why we do these things eagerly. Not because we have to, but because we want to. Because God has made us so we want to take care of one another. So we want to take care of the weak, and we want to take care of the sick, and we want to take care of those that need help. We're not a cruel people. We have the right kind of love that God has poured into our hearts. Okay? Peter says, not domineering over those in your charge. You can be a daddy without being a crabby daddy. You can be a father that is correct and firm, but not crabby. Not always griping, angry, not domineering, not pushing down those in charge, but be an example. Now this is your charge. If it's your charge, Jesus is going to say, what happened to my sheep? And if you don't believe this, Jesus is the only shepherd I know that I've ever read about who will be unhappy if he loses just 1% of his flock. You realize that? When he tells you the story in Matthew chapter 18, the man had 100 sheep, and how many was gone? One. You can't suffer 1% loss in your business. That's just 1%. But he won't want that. Because it's not just a profit and loss thing with him. That is a soul that he loves. So he tells us, I don't want you to act towards each other in any way that will cause anybody to be lost. And I want you to make sure they're saved, and you do the hard, terrible things you're going to have to do. If you're going to help, you're going to have to go and help people do what's right. That's all in chapter 18. Okay. And when the chief shepherd appears, when the chief shepherd appears, who's the chief shepherd? Jesus. You will receive the unfading crown of glory. But you don't do it to get the unfading crown of glory. You do it because you have the heart that loves the sheep. You have the heart that has the kind of love that God wants us to have. Peter turns and look at Peter now. I want you to tell me why you think he says this. He saw the following of the disciple whom Jesus loved, who had lain close to his breast at the supper and had said, Lord, who is it that's going to betray you? John doesn't say, I was following them. But John was following them, right? John's very interesting. He's evidently much younger than Peter because he's still alive in 90 AD. All right? And he's following them. When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, Lord, what about this man? Now tell me, why do you think he said, what about this man? Jesus had just told him, you're going to get killed in my service. You're going to die in my service. Why did he say that? How do you feel? See, we reveal what we are as we think about what Peter was doing. Is Peter jealous, or is Peter wants to know what's going to happen to his friend? They're good friends. They're dear friends. They ran to the tomb together. They went to the mountain together. They went in to see the little girl raised from the dead together. They've been very close for 3.5 years. They worked together. They were partners together in business. And Peter looks at him and says, what about him? What about him? I want to know about him. What's going to happen to him? I think it's a good belief. I think it's because he loved him. Now, you can think what you want, but I think that. What does Jesus say to him? If it's my will that he remains until it comes, what does that to you? Peter, you're doing the thing that you do best. That is minding somebody else's business. My wife always tells me that's not your problem. So don't worry about it. Sometimes you and I tend to get into other problems that are not our problems. And Peter's trying to get into something that is not his problem. Because everybody has your own story from God. We help each other, but every person is responsible directly to God, correct? We hate that because we like to take responsibility. Cannot be. All right. What does he tell me? Follow me. Follow me. Follow me. I don't know how he said it. I don't know how he said it. All right. Now John tells you something about him. People did say anything about John because he's been there while all the other apostles have died. Years have gone by. Mary's been with him. She's probably died by this time. He's taking care of them. Now he's an old man. He's written, perhaps he's written the book of Revelation before this. He's an elder in the church. He's an old man. He's taking care of churches. He has people he's concerned about. The saying went abroad, brother, that this disciple was not to die. And he explains to you, yet Jesus did not say to him that he was not to die. Now, John is a very old man. And some of the earliest traditions about him was that he was in Ephesus as a very old man. They had to carry him to the assembly of the saints. And he was always saying, my little children, love one another. All right? And you think, when we look at him, he's a young man. We see him as a young guy that's scared to go in the tomb. But by this time he writes this book, he's an old, old man. But he said, if I will, they remain till I come. What is that to you? Now, he has some people with him. Perhaps the elders of the church at Ephesus, I don't know. He says, this is the disciple who's bearing witness to these things, and who has written these things. This is who I am. And we know, somebody else is signing it to them. We know, maybe those who've been with him for a long time, we know that his testimony is true. How do you know his testimony is true? How do we know his testimony is true? Because we believe it, and we live it, and it's proven true in our experience as well as in our minds, correct? We know it's true, and that's what I want to share with others, and that's what you want to share with others. Now John says that I didn't do my job. I didn't complete my job. There are also many other things which Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose that the world itself would not contain the books that would be written. So I wrote, he has an adequate but not a complete story. That's why we're not concerned when we find other story things in the other Gospels. Because John didn't tell us everything. But he was very selective. He told us everything he did to get us to one point where we could be challenged to say what Thomas said. My Lord and my God. Questions? I have one when you get done with your questions. Can you tell this story to other people? How many of these things do you have to tell to other people to make them start thinking about Jesus differently? There were 7 signs in here, which Jesus did. Oh, there's 8 signs in this book that are very powerful. Plus a lot of other things. I don't know how you feel, but I like this. I like this story. Now, here's your challenge, because you know that you're not just tied to the Gospel of John. You now have to grow in your, if you don't know it yet, you have to grow in your faith, and you can take the Gospel of John, as you read it and study it and say, oh, this must have happened just after he was at the Mount of Transfiguration. And you tie in this story then with the story you know that Matthew told you, and Mark told you, and Luke told you, so that when you're telling people a story, you can give them a much more complete story. That's kind of the dream I have. That's what I've been trying to do for years and years and still struggling to do. But we need to do it. So when you're sleeping, going to sleep, and you need something to think about, you lie there and you say, Chapter 1. What was in chapter 1? Oh, Oh, in chapter 1, the amazing thing that's hard to explain to people. The Word became flesh. Chapter 2, what happened in chapter 2? Oh, yes. We don't want to tell people, but Jesus made 120 to 180 gallons of water. Yes. Right? Chapter 3, what happened? Oh, and he cleansed the temple. Chapter 3, what happened in chapter 3? He makes something clear. He said in chapter 1, it must be chapter 4. Oh my. I'm too bad to tell the story. I'm too bad to tell a story. And he said, I'm too bad to tell a story. You know what I'm going to tell you? The story's not about you. It wasn't about the lady at the well. It was about Jesus, right? That whole story is about Jesus. The same thing you learn in all the Bible. You study things like the book of Philemon. You say, Philemon's about a runaway slave. Philemon is not about a runaway slave. It is true that Onesimus was a runaway slave, but Philemon is about Jesus. Because the only reason Onesimus got to go back to Philemon was that he became Christian, and Philemon's a Christian, and that made the difference. Listen, okay, you could go through, right? Chapter 5, what happens there? Trouble comes because he healed an ungrateful man on the Sabbath. But he's proving something, that is, he is Lord of the Sabbath, he is the Lord of creation, he has a right to do anything in this world that God tells him to. And in that chapter he says, whatever I hear, whatever I see, I do because my Father is working through this time. Chapter 6 stacks up another. Chapter 6, wow, it's amazing. I don't think Jesus can take care of me. Really? With 5 loaves and 2 fish, he fed 5,000 men plus their wives and their children. And the people wanted food, and they were worried about food more than they were about going to heaven. And we have a long discussion in that chapter that you need to spend time on. And he uses figurative language. And by the way, later on, almost when he's done with his ministry, talking to the disciples, saying, oh, you're no longer talking in figures. Now we understand clearly. It's because he's been using figurative language. You're not going to bite into Jesus' arm. You're not going to suck his blood. But he says you're going to be sustained with me. What happened in chapter 7? We discovered something. I see what happened in chapter 7. His brothers do not believe on him. It's very sad. And he goes up to the feast, right? And in the middle of the feast, he doesn't quietly say something. He shouts, anybody that's thirsty, come to me and drink. And that's a beautiful thing. You can speak about that. Because whosoever believes on me, out of his innermost being shall flow rivers of living water, like the water that was given to the bad girl at the well. Right? What's chapter 8? Anything interesting in chapter 8? Something out of place. The story of the lady taken in the act. Right? And he saved her life and saved her soul. Continue discussion. Chapter 9. Any miracle in chapter 9?
Yes. He was a man born blind.
So just like us, we have to go from thinking of Jesus as a Tav Olam to being a man of God to being man and God. And we will do what we're not allowed to do to any man, and that is we will worship Jesus. That gets us ready for that confession, doesn't it? We really believe that. What about the next chapter, chapter 10? What's it about? It's tied to chapter 9 because the man is driven out of his religion. And Jesus is looking at the people who drove him out, looking at the hearts of the Jewish people, and he contrasts himself to the thieves and the robbers in religion before him. I'm the door of the sheepfold, I am the good shepherd. And this shepherd is different than any other shepherd because he will die for his sheep. Not he's willing to die, but he will die for his sheep. And he does. Wow. What do you get in chapter 12? Oh, it's exciting. Because, no, I skipped chapter 11. What's in chapter 11? Anything in chapter 11? I am the resurrection of life. A beautiful story. Overwhelmingly beautiful story. You can talk for hours on that. Right? And then, at the next chapter, are they grateful? Are they thankful? They have a party. and Lazarus is there, and Martha is there, and Mary anoints Jesus, and Judas exposes his heart. Right? Now we left out, we left out the end of chapter 4. We have prayer. Okay. And what's going to happen in chapter 13, 14, 15, 16? He's going to talk to us about this deep section of life. This is his teaching. The most detailed teaching Jesus ever gave directly to his disciples. You hear what he's speaking to them. He washes their feet. And he cleanses their feet. Peter, as always, is talking. And you don't want him to cleanse his feet. What would Peter do? You're not supposed to wash my feet. Well, why didn't you wash people's feet? Because they're all arguing about who's greatest yet, I guess. Right? Never mind, we can't go back all over that. But the point is, he teaches us that we should wash each other's feet. I have taught you that you should do this to one another. Now, he's not talking about dirty feet, like we get when we're walking without sandals on. He's talking about our lives being changed. And Brother Paul told us, you who are spiritual, when your brother is overtaken in a trespass, when he gets his feet dirty, you restore him in the spirit of gentleness. Be careful that you won't fall too. I believe that's there. All right. 14, if he says he's going away, they're going to be scared. He says, don't be scared. I prepare a place for you. What about 15? I expect fruitfulness out of you. Because of your union with me, you can have fruitfulness in your life. We need to not be shouting this as duties to people, but to tell them this is the facts of your relationship with Christ. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. It's not in the imperative. You can make it you can shout it at people and teach them, if you love him, you'll keep his commandments. But that is not what he said. He said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. It's a statement. That's your nature. All right. What happens in 16? We can't make it alone. Right? It's just like the gospel, just like the book of Romans. You'll never walk alone. He that is with you shall be in you. And then we see Jesus talking to his Father. And we realize he's saying, I want you to give me back the glory that I had with you before. I'm not praying for this world. I'm praying for the disciples you gave me. They were yours and you gave them to me. And I didn't lose any of them except the one. That was, he had put himself in a position to be lost, right? But not only do I pray for them, but John would say he's praying for the ones reading this story. For those who will believe on me through their words. And after that comes the victory. Because they go away against them, and then you got the story there that must touch anyone's heart that has any sensitivity. And it looked like a defeat. It looked like everything's growing. And on Saturday, they have no hope. And on Sunday, he rises, the sunrise, the day star rises in our hearts, and Jesus Christ rises from the dead. And the greatest miracle of all. Correct? And that's the story. You can tell it with a napkin and McDonald's. If you want bad food, there's a place to sit. Any questions?
Christian, regarding this, when Jesus Christ says that I and the Father are one, what do you mean by this?
Yeah, he says to, you remember,
he gets I and
a
the Father are one, because the apostles were questioning that at that moment when, how could I see
yeah.
the Father?
Philip says, show us the Father, and it suffices. Show us the Father.
Jesus Christ said that if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. And many times I think Jesus Christ said that I am the Father are one. So how can they be one? Or
Now,
is the
that's good. That's really good, because that's a very puzzling question. I mean, it's very, very puzzling religion. But
because
you
other religions believe that the Father is also Jesus Christ.
yeah, but the other religions are not looking, they're not studying the book.
By that thinking back.
But see, you only get in trouble when you take these statements out of the place they're found. He's talking about, how do you and I come to believe that Jesus is divine? If you don't, you remember chapter 5 gave us all these witnesses And one is, if you don't believe me because of my words, believe me because of my works, right? Now I want to ask you something. Who healed the blind man?
It's the Father only. Because Jesus Christ was doing the will of the Father, so it's
Well,
the Father really.
Then you saw God doing it. That's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about. He's not saying that Father and I are the same person. It cannot be. How can he pray, let me have the glory I had with you before the world was? And that's what you got. See, this is so sad. And the reason I don't want to argue with people who don't believe these things, I want them to see this whole story and then say, now then, we're ready to discuss it. But until you see the whole story, please don't argue with me that there's only one and you should only baptize in the name of Christ and not name the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That is foolishness that you gained because you didn't start with the Bible. You started with the arguments and the considerations of men. Isn't that right? Because we start thinking, they come to us with these arguments. Well, where are you getting this idea? Well, it says Jesus and the Father are one. Yeah. And it says that they might know you the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you sent. Therefore, Jesus is not true God. No, that's not true. You're taking things out of the picture. The picture shows, how do we know that Jesus is divine? This is what John's been trying to prove to us all the way through this book. That he is the Christ, the Son of God. Now, if we believe that he is the Son of God, what nature do we believe he has? He's divine. Well, if he's divine, is he different than Father? Not in nature. He's one, correct? But that's not the challenge. The challenge is even more scary. And we don't talk about that. The Father's in me, and I am in the Father. And you are in me, and I am in you.
So
Wow.
It's a united one, no?
Yes. And that's what we're working for, right? And we have to get to the point, not because we think we have special powers or anything like that, but we have to get to the point where we live with great confidence that God is going to direct our life and take care of us. And he will do great things, not because we are great or we're good or anything else, because you're not. You're going to spend a lot of your time saying, I'm sorry. You're going to be more Peter than you are Paul, or more Peter than you are John. You're going to have our mistakes, and we're going to have to confess too, aren't we? So I see that, and I agree with you. The language is very hard for us to accept, because I and the Father are one, and you know,
and also some statement of Jesus Christ is that my Father is greater than I.
Yeah.
And,
the Father is greater than I.
Somehow, yeah, even the Catholics are believing in Trinity, that the Father, the Son, and the Spirit have.
And this is the thing we must do. We must adhere. We must say to people, all right, I will read your book of theology. I will listen to your theological argument. I do that. But I won't believe anything unless I see it in the book. And I will take the definitions from the Bible and be satisfied with it. Because I am, if the Father is greater than Jesus, why is that true? I know one reason it's true, because Philippians 2 told me that he emptied himself and became one of us out of his love. Now we ought to be asking this, how can he be one of us with us? Is he one with us? Is he a real man?
Yes.
Did he ever stop being a real man?
No.
Did he ever stop being real divine?
No.
No. How do you explain that? You don't explain that. You believe that, but you don't explain that. Can you? I can't. But I believe it, and we benefit from that belief, correct? But he says, I'm one with you, and you're one with me. And there's another thing. We could make it just as the Father wants to do something, Jesus does it, and they're united in that way. And God wants something done, and we want something done, and we're united that way. That's the truth, but that's not what he's really talking about here. What I've done proves to you something. And what does it prove to you? That I am in the Father, and the Father's in me. That's what I proved to you. I proved that. Now, you're still going to have to face up the fact that when you think about the deity, the word that you have there for, not for Trinity, there's no such word in the Bible, but the deity, when you think about that, you're going to have to think about, okay, God made me because I am always on this side of creation. I have to think about Jesus seated at the right hand of God. Isn't that the way we look at him now? Where is he? He's been exalted and seated at the right hand of God. Well, who's in charge in the world then? Well, he. Just like the Father's in charge of the world, but the Father's not walking here anymore. So you're fortunate that I go away, because if I go away, I will send another comforter. And he that is with you will be where? In you.
Yes.
Well, so the Holy Spirit dwells in our hearts, right? He operates in us, he helps us. But he doesn't take away our will. He doesn't take away our responsibilities. And somehow he blesses us and helps us that we cannot define. I believe it. Don't you? Because that's a promise. And yet Jesus says, I go away and I will come to you. I go away and I will come to you. Now, who caused the people to write the Bible? When you start in 1 Peter, Brother Peter tells you the Old Testament scriptures, these men were wanting to know the secrets there, and that the Spirit of Christ in them, which your apostles now have preached to you through the Spirit of Christ. So the Spirit of Christ caused the Old Testament men to speak, just like he did the New Testament people speak, and yet the Spirit of Christ is not Christ. Right? He's the Spirit of God. So we understand why people come up with like Trinity, a word like Trinity and all. The problem is, as we start defining that, we're not really sure what we're talking about. We just know this, I just know this, that when we come to the Father, I worship him. I worship him. I know he's the Father. And this is the most, you mind me, I said that, just said, I want to come back and tell you a story. And then, I worship the Son. Yet I know he's man. Right? But it's right to worship him, because that man in John 9 worshiped him. We worship Jesus Christ. The angels worship Jesus Christ. The holy ones in heaven worship Jesus Christ. So we worship Jesus also. And what about the Spirit of God? If you believe he's divine, you acknowledge him too. You worship him too, right? This truth of this word of God is so powerful. It's unbelievable how powerful. I read a story. I got to remember, Mimosa. A girl's name was Mimosa, and she was in India. It was in the time of the British, and they were coming, and the missionaries were coming. And the missionaries had started a school, and her sister was allowed to go to a school. Her father wanted the advantage of the education the English brought, not the religion. But he wouldn't let this other girl, Mimosa, go to school. And her book is the stories about her. So she got to go to this mission place. Her sister stayed there to study, but she didn't get to study. But she heard something while she was there. She heard them teach that God was a father. That God was a father. And when she believed that, she could never any longer stay in the Hindu believing about God. He's not a great, terrible being that will destroy you. She couldn't do that. So her whole life, she knows no more. But she finds out that God is a father, and she will now look at him and think he must love him. He must care for me. And it goes on the story. And later, an unfaithful Christian quoted a psalm to her. So she got another little piece out of the Bible, of the revelation of God, and it helped her also. And finally, of course, she was blessed with one. She got to know about Jesus Christ. So you got a good point. Good question to bring up. And that is your assignment for next time. Next time we get together, I'd just love to ask you all to share, explain chapter 13 through 17 very clearly. No, it's very well. Anybody else got any questions? I'm glad you're here. Let's see if we're ready to quit. Are we supposed to do something like tell a picture taking